For the 47th installment of the Playing to Win podcast series, and I'm joined today by Robert Kiyosaki. How you doing, Robert?
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome, welcome. So, I think I should. I mean, I would do a big intro and normally read like a bio to everybody, but I think they know who you are. If you don't know who Robert is, you should just Google his name. I mean, it's you'll figure it out by the end of the show. Um, so we've talked before, you, me, and Rolo, and I don't know if I told you this, but Rolo was the guy that basically red pilled me on relationships and what he calls a sexual marketplace. And you happen to be the guy that red pilled me on money and finance. I can't put my finger on when I read your book. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I was at an airport at a layover, and I had about 5 hours between flights, and I just picked up your book at the airport bookstore, and it was a bit of an eye opener, because my entire life, as a young man, they always told you, go to school, get good grades, take accounting courses, learn business, blah blah blah. And along comes this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, where there's one dad that does it wrong and one dad that does it right, and the guy that does it wrong happens to be your dad, and the guy that did it right was, the character that you created in the series. How did you come up with that notion of the Rich Dad Poor Dad concept?
Well, it's a true story. When I was 9 years old, I grew up in Hilo, Hawaii, which is the farthest city south, 19.5 latitude, north latitude. And I moved from one part of town to another part of town. My father was the head of education, poor dad. And there were two schools side by side, one right across the street from each other. And one school was for rich white kids. The other school was Union School, which was for immigrant kids. And so, Hawaii is a plantation state. So kids came from all over the world, Asia, China, Portugal, Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids I should have been with were at Union School for unionized. And Riverside School was for rich white kids, or primarily the rich kids who were primarily Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So Chinese and whites. And I'm going to this little small school across the street from where I should be going. And the first thing I noticed, they all had nice bikes, and I had this old piece of shit $5 bike. And I wanted to know at that point at 9, I said, how come some people are rich and how come some people are poor? You're 9 years old, you want to know. So I asked my school teacher, her name was Mrs. Baptiste. She could have played the Wicked Witch of the North, but anyway, she trashes me for the love of money is the root of all evil and all that stuff.
Oh, here we go. That's where it started.
Wait a minute. And I said, it may be evil to you, but it's not evil to me. And so I go to my poor dad, ask him the same question. I said, how come we don't learn about money at school? And to me, it was a normal question. And he said, well, we don't teach money at school. And I said, that's strange. So he said, but if you want to learn about money, talk to your best friend's father. And that was Mike's father. And he was Chinese. He never went to school. And he never went to school because his father died. And he had to take over the family store at 13. So he got on-the-job training, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my poor dad, the academic, I said, what's the difference? He says, well, one guy's an entrepreneur and I'm an employee. And so I get more confused as a kid. Well, what's the difference? And it says an entrepreneur must know about money and employees don't. And I just thought that was very, very strange. But that's where the story started. So I had to go work for my rich dad for free in his hit restaurants and hotels and all this stuff. And he would teach me, you work for free because if I pay you, you'll start programming yourself to think like an employee. And his entrepreneurs don't work for money. And I was getting more confused. And so finally, he's teaching me playing Monopoly. So I work for free, and he spends about an hour a week playing Monopoly with his son and me. And so finally I asked him, I said, why are we playing Monopoly? And he said, well, because one of the greatest, there's millions of ways. He says, there's a million ways you can go to financial heaven. There's different ways. But one of the best ways is on Monopoly. And I said, what's the formula? He said, 4 greenhouses, 1031 tax deferred exchange into a red hotel. I went, what? He says, it's right in front of you. And this is a lesson for everybody. Wealth is always right in front of you. Sometimes you just can't see it.
Mm.
So when I was 19, when 18, I go to school in New York. I got nominations to Naval Academy and to Merchant Marine Academy. I took Merchant Marine Academy. And when I came back from New York in 1966, I was, what they call a fourth classman, a plebe. Rich Dad had bought the Red Hotel. So he went from greenhouses to Red Hotel. So I'm observing him working his business plan. That Red Hotel today is the Hyatt Regency on Waikiki Beach.
Okay.
And
Now, I thought I read somewhere that Rich Dad was a fictional character, but you said that he was actually your friend's dad, right?
yeah, you got careful who you talk to, because like when Rich Dad Poor Dad came out, I got trashed.
Yeah.
New York Times took me over the coals. All the academic elite took me over the coals because they all want to believe that their college degree makes them Superman or Superwoman.
Right. And you didn't have one.
So,
Yeah.
I'm glad I went to college, but I didn't. My college degree is in naval architecture and ocean transportation. I've never used any of it.
Right. Right. What kind of student were you in, like, elementary school and high school? Were you good, like an A student, or
No,
just a?
no. The thing that is, they always say Asians. All the Asians are battling out in Harvard because there's too many Asians getting into Harvard. Well, I didn't help that curve at all. I was the bottom half.
Okay.
You got to study. I didn't study.
Yeah.
I still play Monopoly.
Well, it's not a bad thing. I wasn't a great student either. I mean, I was probably a C average student. In fact, I've told the story before. It's probably been a while since I mentioned it, but my grade 8 teacher couldn't handle me in the classroom. I can't remember what her problem was, but I ended up getting a desk in the vice principal's office for a week, and pretty much for the entire week, he's lecturing me about,
Yeah.
if you study and you do everything right, one day you can be sitting at my desk, and you'll be a vice principal of a public school like me. And I don't know what he was getting paid at the time. Nowhere near as much as what I make now, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
it's always funny when you get those academics. There's a guy that I met at a conference that once said, "Don't let school get in the way of your education." I guess that's something that you resonate with.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then you went
the
on.
funny thing is that because I know you like cars, right?
Oh yeah.
So all my friends, we McLarens or Ferraris, and we all have different our grade point average on our license plate. So mine was C plus, and my other friend is C minus.
Yeah, I've got some friends with plates like that. I got a friend that's got one that says no degree,
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, or no wife,
Yeah.
whatever,
Anyway.
whatever seems to work. I'm actually curious about your time in the military, because I'm a big guy with military. I've called this room Bomber Command. You can't see this wall over here, but I have all these like pictures of like planes and stuff. And you mentioned that you flew gunship helicopters in Vietnam. What was that like?
That was a growing up time. I'll go back because I'm coming shamelessly plug my latest book coming out November
Oh,
10th,
please do.
Marine Corps birthday. Okay. It's called the Capitalist Manifesto. It's how we can counter communism taught in schools by teaching capitalism in our homes. And see, that's where I learned about capitalism. I learned about capitalism at home,
Mm-hmm.
not at school. I learned communism at school. And my poor dad, good man, my mother's a good person, but they never read the Communist Manifesto. They never studied Hitler, and they never studied Mao. So today we have absolute communism going through our academic system now. And we wonder why we have, I won't mention names because we get deplatformed.
Mm-hmm.
But the media is now completely, as you know, on the dark side. And so
Yeah.
I am fighting for capitalism because capitalism is about freedom. You can be a communist if you want, but don't take my freedom away.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about the state of the world right now in this show. And again, guys, I mean, if you're new to this series on the podcast, it's called Playing to Win. And there's two distinct ways that I see people play in life. They either play to win or they play not to lose. And they might sound
Correct.
similar, but playing to win is a very different
Correct.
approach to life than playing not to lose, right?
Correct.
But back to the helicopter gunship, because I want to get to that. What did you fly and what was that like?
Well, make a short answer long. I had a high-paying job with Standard Oil when I graduated from Merchant Marine Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So my classmates in '69 were making $120K a year, which is pretty good back then. and Marine gunship pilot was making 200 a month. And so it was a tough decision, Rich. I said, well, and I had my instructor was a B-17 pilot in World War II. And I sat down with him. I said, I got this high paying job with Standard Oil. And you talked about flying bombers, B-17s against Germany in World War II. You got shot down twice, captured once, and otherwise what was that like? He says, the best experience of his life.
Sorry, Robert, just give me 1 sec. My cleaner's asking me a question. Sorry, I'm just on a call. You can't disturb me right now. No, keep the vacuum off. Thanks. Sorry about that.
And I'll say, anyway, my English teacher says it was the best experience of his life. So here I'm 24 years old. I have this high-paying job with Standard Oil, and I look in this guy's eyes, and I got the message.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
All
So
right.
I freaking joined the Marine Corps to go fight, which proves how stupid I am. But I figured if I was going to go to war, I want to go to war with guys who like to kill.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go with the Coast Guard. They like to save lives. I want to kill people.
Right.
So I wind up at Pensacola, and then I said, I was going to fly the C-130, the prop plane, 4-engine prop.
Mm-hmm. That's the Hercules with the gun set up where it banks and it kind of loiters in circles. Yeah. Okay.
So they it was also Puff the Magic Dragon, the gunship went overhead.
Right.
That's what I wanted to fly. Just hammer them with electric guns.
Okay.
Anyway, so I do a flight on a C-130, and I said, this is the wrong plane for me, because I can't stay awake. It's like sitting in a classroom for 10 hours.
Okay.
Those damn C-130s. I said, so I asked my monitor, my career counselor, I was at Pensacola. I said, what's the fastest way to Vietnam? He says, gunships. I said, why is that? He says, life expectancy, 30 days.
Mm.
And that's how I wound up on gunships flying off a carrier in Vietnam.
So gunship helicopters, like what did you fly? Was it Cobras? Was it Hueys?
Both.
Both, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're interchangeable. Cool. The gunship I liked the best was a Huey because I had gunners on board.
Yeah.
And these guys are like kids, 19 years old. They knew no fear.
So all you had to do was get the gunner there and just let him do his thing, huh?
Yeah, we just and it wasn't a good time. There was a lot of tremendous sadness, when gunships don't come, your friends don't come back. You know what I mean? You sit there waiting on the carrier, and they say they're not coming back. So I went to the Wailing Wall in Washington, D.C., and there's my classmates' names up there.
Yeah, I've seen that wall. It's a big wall with lots of names. Would you recommend the military to young men today?
I'm glad you asked that question because you and Rollo have helped me so much. I mean, the reason I'm on this program is to say thank you to you and Rollo.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Because what happened to me was, I don't think I was alpha, but I was a Marine pilot. I was pretty much an asshole. And then I got married to a great woman, still married to her, but I turned into a big fat beta.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a very happily married man. I never cheated on my wife and all that. And I realized that was a big mistake. Not cheating. I mean, I don't cheat, even on my taxes. I pay no taxes, but I don't cheat. But anyway, I became a big fat beta.
Yeah.
And so when my wife left me, as you guys talk about, 80% are initiated by the woman.
Correct.
And it was like taking a shotgun blast right in the chest because I love her so much. And then so my friend George Gammon gave me Rollo's book, and then he told me to watch you because he drives a McLaren like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm watching you guys. And you guys are onto it. I mean, you guys have a message that's worth talking about because, as you guys say, testosterone levels are going down. And as a Marine, I'm not LBGT. I'm a man. I like women. If you want to have sex with a man, that's your private property. It's not mine. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
But what you guys talk about is essential. And, I asked to come on your program just to validate what you're saying. We have too many guys who aren't men anymore. There's no money. They have no money, no sex, no power.
Yeah.
No money, no sex, no power.
That's
tragedy.
Money, sex, power. Yeah. Let's cover that too. But I want to go back to the question about would you recommend the military to men today? Because the military today is a lot different than the military that you joined back in the day.
Yeah, they now have Black Lives Matter training and all that stuff inside of it. There's a Victor Davis Hanson. He did a thing about Patton. I think it's for Hillsdale College,
mm-hmm.
And people should study Patton because that guy was a wild man. But he got pounded because Eisenhower and those guys were kind of one of my best friends is a 3-star general Marine, and he fought, does his story, he fought in Vietnam, he did all this. He says, but too many generals today are bunker bunnies. They don't go on the front line. And Patton was a front line guy.
Mm.
And so the difference in mindset, so against Victor Davis Hanson, he talks about George Patton. And I think every man should listen to Patton, what Patton was like.
Is there a piece of material that you'd recommend most? Is there a book? Is there a documentary or anything? Or
no, it's Victor Davis Hanson on YouTube. He spoke at Hillsdale College.
Okay.
But he did this whole report on Patton. And Patton was kind of my hero too, because like I said, he wanted to take on Russia. And Eisenhower and the boys wanted to take Russia. Patton, all they remember Patton for was slapping those people in the hospital, which he should have done. But he was a rich guy. He's kind of like a Trump, even the same kind of energy. So it's not whether you're rich or poor, it's your spirit you come out with. So Patton was kind of my hero. My aunt was the prima ballerina of Paris, and she fought for the French underground. So when I was at school in New York at Kings Point, she used to talk to me about Patton also. The guy was a real stud.
Mm-hmm.
But the political generals like Eisenhower and those guys, they got the glory, but the guys like Patton are on the front line, and I'd rather be on the front line. Mm-hmm. So that's the long answer to the military. I am glad I went. I am really, really glad, but not everybody should go.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I have guys that have been in the military that are asking questions about, do you think it's a good place to spend some time? And I think I see the value in the discipline, and I see the value in the camaraderie, and I see the value in, the grit that I suppose that every guy should still be learning there. But there's just a lot. Like, I've got a guy that I was coaching a couple of years ago that was a naval officer, and he was telling me all these stories of all the political nonsense that he was dealing with on the boat, and female officers and the drama, and it's just like all this stuff back and forth. And it's like, he's on a trajectory to go start his own business, and the military doesn't offer him anything that would be useful to his future. So, we put a plan together to basically, put an exit strategy out, because, when the writing's on the wall and you see it, then it's just like, okay, enough's enough. We have to accept this and surrender that this is the environment that we're in today. We're not going to change it by protesting or complaining to a CO, right?
Well, let me add this. You saw what happened in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah. They
just that was pure treason. That was absolute treason.
That was horrible.
And the guy they put in jail is that Marine Lieutenant Colonel who criticized the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah.
They should put the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Biden in jail for what happened in Afghanistan. That was treason.
Yeah.
But they put this Marine Lieutenant Colonel in jail. What is wrong with this country?
Yeah, that was, I don't know how many years that war was, but it's like they basically spent all that time and money in Afghanistan, and all these men lost their lives to basically replace the Taliban with the Taliban. That's what they ended up with. But what are you going to do? Yeah, the military is a interesting conversation these days, especially, with the topics around Russia and China and what's going on between, China and Taiwan right now, and, how that's going to affect things here. Let me ask you, to kind of predict, like, how do you think the next 5 or 10 years is going to unfold with America, with this Chinese, Taiwan, Russia sort of collusion, blah, blah, blah. Like, you hear all these narratives, and I know that you've been around a lot longer, and you kind of see the code in the matrix, when it comes to politics and the economy. So I just wanted to ask you your view on that.
I think it's a cover-up. I think that's like, it's like it's like the magician, they wave the flag here, but they're shuffling stuff around here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of this saber rattling, which, China is a formidable foe, but they're business partners. Do you know what I mean? They need us as much as we need them economically. Mm-hmm. It's the same as what's going on with the Fed. The Fed has got no power. There's the European shadow bank system. It's got more power, but the Fed issues is, they call it forth, they watch CNBC, and I sit there watching that garbage, and they say, well, the Fed's going to do this, Fed's going to do that. The Fed's got no power, but what they're trying to get us to believe is that there's inflation. It's really what's happening is we're in depression. And the same things in China with this COVID thing. I was writing another book on September 17th, 2019, when the repo market collapsed. I went, holy shit. The last time that happened was 2007, and then 2008 came.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew something was wrong, and then COVID appeared. So being, I talk about gold, silver, Bitcoin, not because I'm a gold, silver, Bitcoin fan. I just don't trust the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. You know what I mean? I don't trust them. So
Yeah.
I buy stuff that's outside their system.
Yeah, and that's great advice that I've been, talking about for years now. I mean, I wish I got in earlier. It was around 2012 or 2013. I was talking to my friend about, what he was up to, and he said, "Oh, I'm going all in on this cryptocurrency thing and Bitcoin." I'm like, "You're crazy. The banks are going to try to shut it down. They're not going to let something like this take off. It's not happening." He's like, "No, well, you watch and see." And he started in 2012, 13. I got in 2017, so I was a few years later than he was, but it's still very early. I mean, like, speaking of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and gold and silver, like, do you think that has legs? Like, do you think that's something that's going to, still be around in 10 or 15 years?
No, I think people should pay attention. That's why I love YouTube, because I get real teachers, and a lot of them are fakes. But you find the real guys, like this guy, Jim Records, is a friend of mine. He was with long-term capital management and all this stuff. I was just with Ron Paul in Dallas last week and all this. But this is the enemy here. This is $1. It says $10 billion.
Where's that from? From which country?
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, okay.
And I want people to see this is because this is the future of the dollar. If you understand that, that's why they're paying people not to work. That's why COVID is going around. And I've had COVID. It's real. It's not that bad. But I think it's a distraction from the debt. It just printed $10 trillion to prevent the economy from collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I recommend gold, silver, Bitcoin, and YouTube, and listening to guys like you and Gammon and all this stuff, you've got to have people who are playing with the cards, and you can see their cards. Most of these guys, like, they just caught the Fed for insider trading.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys are PhDs, like my poor dad. They're insider trading. They're supposed to be protecting us.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break. And so that's why when I was in Vietnam in 72, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in 71.
Yeah.
And being a Marine, not the brightest, my co-pilot and I flew behind enemy lines looking for gold. We found this little thing that's a gold mine on the map of Vietnam. One big problem is the NVA had overrun it. So it was now in enemy hands. But proving Marines have no brains, we figured we could get in and out fast enough without them catching us.
How did that work out?
So Rich, I bought my first ounce of gold in 1972, after about 6 months after Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. I still have that. It's a Kruger man.
How much was gold in 1972? How much you pay for that ounce? How much? $50?
Yeah, it was at 35, it floated to 50.
Okay.
But my point here is this: you've got to be aware. There's no answer. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to iterate. I wanted to come on your program because what you say is priceless. What you and Rollo are teaching is priceless.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question about your number one rule. But before I do that, I often tell guys, like, you have to be careful who you listen to out there and who you take advice from. And a couple of things I always ask them, look at is, would you trade places with that person? Number one. Number two, somebody can only take you as far as they've come, right? So if you're listening to some guy that has the same upload button that I do, that you do, that Gammon does, that Rolla does, for example, that really haven't come very far in their life and have done nothing, should you be listening to them? So, I mean, like, how do you generally vet for information sources? Like, what do you do to ensure that you really want to listen to this person? Like, I mean, how did you decide to listen to me? Like, why would you say, well, I'm going to listen to this bald bearded guy up in Canada that's talking about this, that, and the other thing because my friend Gammon recommended it? Like, why did you decide to do that?
Well, because I trust Gammon.
Right.
I mean, he shares an office building with me.
Okay.
And we're just in Texas together. And our whole thing is my new little program that you came on was sex, money, power. Because we all want, when I was in high school, I wanted sex, I wanted money, I wanted power. and they don't teach that in school. So that's why I listen to George, I listen to guys like you and all this.
Mhm.
And then exactly as you guys say, the testosterone level's going down, and the women are getting desperate. Uh, and I laugh because I had Dr. Nicole on to talk to you and Rollo, because she's the woman going up. She went through an epiphany, and she says, I better do something myself. So she's a rich young woman.
Yeah.
And I meet a lot of these rich young women, but they all hate you and Rollo. I
They
think,
don't hate us. What they don't like is the message that we provide, because it
well,
doesn't necessarily serve them.
hey, Rich, it's every time I send one of your tapes or videos or Rollo's, I get these women who want to challenge you. I'm going, why
Ladies, I
waste your
have
time?
ladies, if you want to challenge me, I have a show on Monday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called The Unplugged Alpha. If you have a better solution to something I've addressed, please feel free to call in and I'll put you on, and we can chop it up live. Please, please do.
But that's why you guys crack me up, is because I take on the Fed, I take on the Treasury, I take on schools. You guys take on women. You got more guts than me.
actually, believe it or not, Rollo, the toughest guys to deal with are the plugged-in beta males that are unwilling to see the truth. They just want to keep doing what they've always done, and they always keep getting what they've always gotten, which is unfortunate.
Well, what you guys talk about is, I mean, it's not male or female. It's really about sex, money, power.
Yeah,
When you think about it, and so a lot of times women are now getting more money and power, but what they lose is what you guys call hypergamy, is they get more powerful, but there's fewer men.
right.
And boy, that pisses them off.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for women, and we can talk about this for a couple minutes too. But I was actually going to put a video on this. I mean, we can talk about this briefly, but you get a woman that gets about 40 years old who's chased excellence all her life. She's got a bunch of degrees on the wall, framed in mahogany with little letters after her name, and she's done something with her life, and she's now become wealthy. And then she looks at the dating pool and she says, all right, well, let's find a guy. Well, women are hypergamous, so that means they date up and across. So that means that she has to find somebody that's at her level or better. She's obviously going to prefer better. And then the problem after that now is, okay, so now you've shrunk the pool dramatically. And the problem after that is a lot of the guys that are in that age bracket that she's looking around her age are dating younger women. And then they get upset that they're having difficulty finding a good candidate to, get into a relationship with or start a family with or whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about your number one rule, which was you must learn the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, when I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad in 97, it came out. It had to be self-published because I said three things. The rich don't work for money. Savers are losers. And your house is not an asset. And it all goes down to a financial statement. I have one right here. This is the financial statement from my board game. So this is income. It's called a P&L.
Is that the cash flow board game?
And this is called a balance sheet.
Yeah.
And this is called the statement of cash flow. And that's all Rich Dad is a book on accounting. So everybody calls our house an asset, but it's a liability because the cash flows out of the expense column.
Mm-hmm.
If I have an asset, like I have apartment houses, it flows into my income column. So assets flow money into your income column, liabilities take money from you. It's that simple. So this is what your banker wants to see, because I go and I borrowed $30 million 3 weeks ago for a project in Austin, Texas. The average guy cannot borrow $30 million. But the way you borrow $30 million, you got to walk in with one of these things. It's called a financial statement. I sat down and said, you see all these assets over here? I got 10,000 of them. I pay no taxes. And I make this a month. It's exactly everything you say, just stepped up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is from my cash flow board game. And it's what you guys say also, chase excellence, don't chase women. I chase this shit here.
Right.
I have so many freaking assets, and it's a habit. I just put deals together. I've been doing it since I was 10 years old.
What do you think of the interviews with Michael Saylor, where he basically describes Bitcoin like digital real estate? Do you think that that Bitcoin is digital real estate? Is it the equivalent of like a building with rental income? I mean, because you
Well,
can stake Bitcoin, it can earn you interest, and it is generally going to appreciate in value the way that it's been designed.
yeah, but just let me explain to me. This here, the Zim dollar or the US dollar doesn't make any difference.
Hmm.
The counterparty risk is the government of Zimbabwe. And the reason I recommend gold, silver, Bitcoin is because the US dollar, if this was a US dollar, the counterparty risk is the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. I trust Bitcoin more than I trust Biden. You can get to that level of intelligence, you got it. I'm a Marine. Like I
I
said,
trust this pen more than I trust government.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's that simple. Keep it simple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, do I like Bitcoin? Yeah, because I bought it at 6,000. Would I buy it today? Maybe not. Do you know what I mean? And all these guys, I've been around long enough. When somebody is telling me it's going to 1.5 million, Bitcoin is, I got to be careful. That's like when a stock comes out. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Tesla is now what, $1,000 a share or something. Well,
Well,
when
do you
it
think
first came out,
Bitcoin
I
will
heard that. I
displace
didn't buy
gold
it.
as a store of value?
What's
Because I
that?
mean, do you think Bitcoin will displace gold as a store of value? Because gold's worth about 10 trillion on the market, I think, is a market cap, and Bitcoin, if I'm not mistaken, is just over a trillion. So basically, 10xing Bitcoin brings it up to $600,000.
My concern is, Rich, and this I'll be up front because the Bitcoin guys will trash me for this one, but
Yeah.
there's all this new technology coming out, and Bitcoin might be old technology. I'm not saying it is or not. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, as a skeptic, as a professional investor, I've got to watch all sides of it.
Got it.
And where gold and silver, I call gold and silver God's money because they're part of the element with the periodic table.
Hmm.
They're part of God. I'm not religious, but I'm saying, and I've started gold mines and silver mines, took them public in Toronto. I hang out in Vancouver, where all the crooks of the world hang out in resource industry.
Hmm.
So I love Canada, because every Frito Bandito hangs out in Vancouver. I've heard every bullshit story possible, but that's why I like the game. I love it.
Hmm.
But if you're going to be so stupid to take my word for it, then that's your problem. If I told you right now Bitcoin is $6,000, how many people would buy it? Well, everybody would.
All right.
But at the time, it was frightening because it went from 20, dropped, almost went off the chart to zero. It stabilized at 3. I watched it there. It hit 6, and I bought 65 Bitcoin because I don't trust the dollar. If you can understand that, I
That was
don't.
a good move.
I don't trust the Treasury, and I don't trust Biden. So I buy Bitcoin.
Let me throw the super chat up here on the screen. So, advice for men pursuing an anti-fragile life. Do you have any advice for men on that?
Oh, for them?
Yeah.
Listen to you. I mean, you're Rich. Only reason I'm on here now is when you talked about stop chasing women, start chasing excellence. My question, I took it to heart. I was, what does chasing excellence mean? Because excellence is a word, and words are cheap. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I could put God, Jesus, diet, exercise. People don't do shit. So I have this diagram here, and these are your 4 intelligences. You have mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. So if you're chasing excellence, chase it in all 4.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? But a lot of times people, oh yeah, yeah, I'm an excellent person. Give me a break. What are you doing that's excellent? So the stuff that I want to acknowledge you for is I hear you're chasing excellence every time I'm in the gym and I want to quit. At that moment, I say, go 2 more. And emotionally, every morning I don't want to go to the gym. Every morning I get up and say, oh, I want to stay in bed. I'm going to suck a coffee down. I'm going to have another beer or something. And
Hmm.
it's called EQ, emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
It's the most important. And so the thing I love about what you and Rollo talked about was, can I chase excellence in everything I do? And it's actually made me a better human being because I'm kind of a grump. And I go in, people stop me on the street constantly. Oh, thank you for writing your books. And I do my best to be the best person at that moment with that person. I don't even know them. But chasing excellence is to me more physical.
I have here. I'm going to drop this real quick, and it's the last video that I just uploaded in my channel. You guys can watch this later. It's just a short. It's 59 seconds long, but it's the definition of what a top shelf man is. Basically, the top 5% of men possess these traits, which is what I would define as chasing excellence is going to get you to arrive at. So watch that later when you have 59 seconds, Rob. I know you're busy, but um, the other super chat I got here. Let me throw this up real quick from Chris. $200 says, "Priceless guest. Thanks for bringing and dude. Thanks for the donation too. Thanks for bringing unplugged successful men onto the showing, willing to share their lives and lesson. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. No question aside from that. Let's see what else we got here. And the competent man has one for us. What do you think of labor, product, and energy problems? Like the government are deliberately running things into the ground."
I tend to agree with that. But again, as we say about chasing excellence, have a mission, have a purpose.
Have a purpose. Yeah. Put a
And
little
that's
dent in
one,
the universe. Make a name for yourself.
correct. And that was the first word I learned at the academy in New York is what's the mission? And so when I started business, it's what's the mission? And the more I chase mission versus money, I'm more successful.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm on your program to acknowledge you guys for being forthright. You know, I appreciate what you guys helped me. You guys have helped me a lot, you and Rollo.
Can we talk about the whole betatization through 1,000 concessions process that you went through with your marriage? Because I mean, you've been pretty open about it. I mean, you called yourself a big fat beta, and you loved your wife to death. You didn't do anything outside of the marriage, and it just kind of the knot sort of untied itself over time. And you mentioned that was because of. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like it's because you kind of relaxed in the marriage, right? Like, did you go through betatization through 1,000 concessions?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. I'm still in love with my wife. I'm very happily married, and I was I was building a feather nest, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And then one day, exactly as you guys say, she says about 4 years ago, she says, "I'm out of here." And it's not cheating her that counted. It's I stopped chasing excellence. She never did. So what I'm saying to you, Rich, is what you guys talk about. So I was pushing, double XL polo shirts and 40-inch waist.
Mhm.
And I'm a Marine. You don't do that shit. And so today I'm down to a 32-inch waist and a 40-inch chest. I'm in the stacks, like you say, 5 days a week now. And I'm making more money. I'm working harder. I'm focusing on this here is what can I do that makes me more excellent? And when I do, the rest falls in place. A lot of people, oh yeah, I'm an ex, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to go work out.
Mhm.
Do anything. And the reason is emotionally it gets in the way. I get up this morning, I go, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to, we had Dr. Nicole on with me who was detoxing me. That detox is a killer because all my addictions come up.
Mhm.
My like drinking and eating. But unless she was there, unless I was willing to do it, go through the 21-day process of her detoxifying my organs, I'd still be a fat beta male. But what came up immediately is headaches, pain, misery. I hated it. I wanted to eat. I wanted to drink and all this and not go to the gym. So every time I'm in the gym, I hear your words, chase excellence.
What do you have to say to the guys out there that, I mean, I generally call them just doomers now. Like they're all doom and gloom, and they would say something like, "Well, if a guy like Robert Kiyosaki couldn't keep his wife around, what makes me think I can do it? Like, why should I get married? Why should I even bother with women?"
Well, that's a very, very good question. I don't have it as a personal question, but I'm still partners with my wife, business wise.
Mhm.
We still, that noise is from. But anyway, uh, I it's like the Marine Corps. I'm glad I went through it, and I'm glad I'm married. And today, as I say, the more I chase excellence, the more women I have. Now, what you guys call LTR, that's another question because I'm still happily married in many ways, but we're just not together. We're still business partners. She's still my best friend. That's priceless. You find, just like my business partners, some of them have been with me 30 years. That's priceless.
Mhm.
And I've met, scumbag business people.
Talk to me about the scumbags out there. I mean, like, there's a lot of horrible people out there that will dupe you, that will take advantage of you. Do you? And I mean, as an older guy, like as you get older, you start to get better and better at like sussing them out. Separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. How do you go about sizing somebody out? To make sure that they're the real deal. Do you have
That's
a
a very,
test or
very
anything?
good. That's a very, very good question because the rule of thumb my rich dad taught me was that from out of every bad deal and every bad partnership comes a good partner. So sometimes it's like you date. She may be the best looking person on earth, but she's not a good person. But it makes you clear on what you want, if you know what I mean. So I've had so many horrible partners. It cost me $30 million to get rid of my last one because they're scumbags. Now this is where my wife stepped up and where I didn't, Rich. She cleaned them out. I didn't. I mean, I make so much money outside my business. I didn't really care how much they stole,
Hmm.
but my wife did. And Kim, she's a beautiful blonde. She's she's thin, but she's not weak. And she went in and fired them all. And I called it was her crossing the Rubicon.
Hmm.
She was no longer just a pretty woman who was smart and all this stuff. She cleaned house, and that's when she cleaned house with me too.
Well, sometimes when it rains, it pours, right? They just keep going. Eric says, best channel, best speakers by Bitcoin. G Money says, Robert, can you tell us a big secret behind green initiatives and the move to carbon-based currency and your thoughts on a U.S. social credit score? There's a few questions there, so let's talk about them. Let's talk about the U.S. social credit score first. What do you think of that question?
Well, I think it's called what surveillance capitalism, and that's why my friend has what Siri and Alexa and all that stuff. I want a little bit of that stuff around me as possible.
Hmm.
And so I know they're tracking. I know they're going to track us on this program, and that's called censorship, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
And the worst thing is self censorship because I'm so afraid what YouTube's going to do to me or Twitter's going to do to me. I self censor, and that's called fascism.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah, I've got a self-censor as well too, and I'm casting. Like I know that there's certain things I can't say in certain
right,
areas that I won't go to, and I just reserve that for off air stuff,
correct,
right?
correct. When having dinner one on one and stuff like
Right.
that, can't be censored. But anyway,
Um,
but this is the thing, Rich. There's always the outside. We cannot control the outside that well, but we can control this inside. And that was the thing I learned in the Marine Corps. Can I be a leader? It meant my own brain, my own emotions, my own spirituality, and my own physicalness. I can control me. So I'm a leader inside of me. And that's why what you and Rollo are saying really strengthened this for me because I was getting my ass kicked by women and my weight physically. I had lost control here.
mhm.
So, like I said, I was in a double L Ralph Lauren shirt and a 40-inch waist.
I think that the notion of the U.S. social credit score that this guy's referencing is probably along the lines of what's unfolding now. That's starting to look like what China's been doing, where it's like
Yeah,
if your credit's not good enough, if you go outside and do something that's not agreeable to the government, or you haven't been vaccinated, for example, you haven't taken certain shots, and you lose certain privileges. Like even right now in Canada, you could argue that there's a social credit score because I can't get on a plane and travel because I haven't taken a government vaccine, right?
right,
So I mean,
right.
there is a social credit score that's starting to unfold here. Like, have you started to see that happening more, or?
Well, I was in Dallas, Texas with Gammon, and I said, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil,
Mhm.
because I have my own private jet and my money stashed offshore."
So, lesson there, guys. Money solves a lot of problems for you.
And I'm going to get a second passport.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Second passports are a very, very good idea.
Yeah,
I had a guy on, David Lesperance. He's a ex-lawyer that lives in Poland. He's a Canadian guy, and he was telling me and he's breaking down all these reasons and all these examples. And it was on this cast too, so it's on this playlist on Playing to Win. And he was breaking down the reasons for second, third passports, how your ass doesn't need to be where your assets are. Like you can have your assets in another country and your ass somewhere else, sort of thing. Very, very good concept. If you guys haven't seen that, go watch it because it's an introductory into it. I'm going to have David on again in the future too, by the way.
Yeah.
So G Money here said the big secret behind green initiatives and the move to carbon-based currency. So what are your thoughts on that part of the question?
Well, God bless AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that communist prinko. Well, when she came out with two things, with the Green New Deal. I don't know if she came up with it, and then tax the rich,
Mhm.
right? So I said, okay, I look at that, and a capitalist can figure that. If you can't outthink a socialist or a communist, hang it up, man. Capitalists are capitalists because they're very creative individuals. So I called my other friend. He's talking to me, and he says, I'm going to start a carbon credit company. So the ALC is driving everybody into carbon credits. They've been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I just made another couple of $1 million because I financed a carbon credit deal.
Yeah.
Everybody has to buy carbon credits from me. God bless AOC. And just go, and a carbon credit is really a tax on like Exxon and the airlines and all this.
Mm-hmm.
What happens now is Delta Airlines has to buy carbon credits from me. God bless them.
Do you think that the carbon credit, social credit system that's coming, I can't remember who did this tweet. It was a guy from Sweden, and it said something along the lines of, the year is 2032. You get into your electric car, which won't go anywhere because you've already utilized your mileage for the month and exceeded your carbon credits. You then walk to the grocery store to pick up your groceries and some steaks, and they won't let you check out with your steaks because you've exceeded your carbon credits. So you have to go home with a bag full of bugs, and that's your dinner. Like, it could get to that point, could it not? Like, don't you think?
You never know, Rich. You never know. I mean, I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad in '97. I came a cash flow board game, which this is part of it. It's a financial statement. Okay, you got to have a financial statement today. Most people don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I can borrow so much money is because of that. But that's my way of saying in 96, 97, I knew it was going to get worse because I flew behind enemy lines in 1972 to buy gold. I paid $50 for it. That was a lot of money back then for a Marine lieutenant,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to get this bad. So it's gotten a lot worse than I imagined. So is it going to get worse? Possibly. But I'm preparing for it, not hiding in a bunker, if you know what I mean. I'd rather be like a Patton on the front line, General Patton, than a bunker bunny general hiding behind afraid of a gunfire.
Life seems to be a series of problems and challenges, especially for men. And I've always said to guys, when they ask me, like, when it comes to entrepreneurship, Rich, like, what do you think is the number one trait that you should have? And I've always said problem solving skills, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. You've got to solve problems constantly. How important is being able to solve problems when they come at you in life?
Well, again, it's skill sets. It's what skill sets do you need to solve the problem? Like, if somebody has a plumbing problem, I can't solve it for them. I'm not a plumber.
Right.
But finance, I understood. So that's why I've been studying money since I was 9 years old. I've been studying the Fed since I read The Creature from Jekyll Island by J. Edward Griffin. And in my book coming out, the Fed is actually Marxist, but people don't know that, which goes back to what I studied at the academy, the Communist Manifesto. Marx and Lenin said a central bank is essential to communism. And this is the third central bank is the Fed. You guys have the Canadian bank, you have the European Central Bank and all this. And they control the show.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I have gold, silver, and Bitcoin, because I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Now, you have to deal with them, but you don't have to be a victim of them.
Yeah, you can structure your life in such a way where you're not under their thumb all the time. Another super chat, Roberts. Thank you. You were the first video, 60 Minutes to Getting Rich, I saw about the rat race in finance. It changed my life big time. Could you talk about the rat race? Because I had a note over here According to Rich Dad, the poor and middle class revolves around a pattern, the pattern of getting up, going to work, paying bills. The cycle repeats over and over again. This is what Robert Kiyosaki refers to as a rat race. Can you talk about the rat race a little bit?
Yeah, the rat race is on my game board. What I do is I take what vernacular we all use if I'm in the rat race, but also there's the fast track, and the fast track is the capitalist track. And to get onto the fast track, you got to have one of these, but they don't teach you at school. They teach you to get good grades, but my bankers never asked me what my grade point average was. My banker just wants to know, is my money coming from here?
Yeah.
How many assets do I have? And like I said, I have about 8,000 rental units, plus commercial, plus this, plus businesses, plus, I just focus here, whereas school teaches you to focus here. How much income can you make? And the trouble with income is your first line's tax. And Marx and Lenin says you want to kill capitalism, you grind them through inflation and taxation. Is that going on today? Yes. We just printed $10 trillion in the US. Canada, your scores, according to the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, you guys are the worst in the world. And I know I love Canada. I'm there all the time. I took my companies public in Toronto, not NASDAQ.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I love Canada, but still, how socialistic you guys are. And especially that happened in Montreal when they wanted to, what's it called? What did the French wanted to do? They wanted to.
Oh, they wanted to separate from Canada.
Separate, yeah.
Yeah, the separatists.
Separatists. So that's going outside. This is what I'm saying. It's all going on outside. Question is, what's going on inside? And that's where you guys have helped me. I've helped others with money problems. But that's why it's education, but you got to take care of yourself inside.
Yep. Cal, just with a $69 super chat. Thanks, it's priceless. Thank you, Robert and Rich, for doing this. Hashtag chase excellence. The Competent Man has another one here. It is hilarious to see the EU beg Russia for more NG as they restrict supply. And natural gas, I'm assuming, is NG. Natural gas in Europe is at 36 per MPTU, all-time high, and Biden begging OPEC for more oil. I never thought people could Magoo. Didn't the U.S. get to a point where it was independent from oil producers with fracking? Did that stop or something?
Yeah, Biden shut it down.
Biden shut it down.
They cut down the Keystone pipeline and all that.
Yeah.
Because I started this whole show. I got a job with Standard Oil when I first graduated, but I went in the military instead. But what he's talking about is this here. This here is the Fed, and this here is a shadow banking system. The shadow banking system is what people cannot see. And what's going on in Europe today, gas prices are going through the roof, which is crushing the shadow banking system. Whereas the Fed is pumping money in. So I watch all of this stuff. I'm going, okay. But that's why it's gold, silver, Bitcoin, because I don't trust the Fed. And everybody thinks the Fed has power. Fed has no power over this. The Fed does not print money. The Fed technically prints what's called bank reserves. You and I cannot spend bank reserves. So the question is, how does a person like me access those bank reserves? I go into a bank, I show them this. Bank reserves get converted into cash via debt. And so I am $1 billion in debt, but the debt has gone to buy assets. I'm completely opposite of the 401k or the RRSP or what Bubble Vision CNBC says. Mm-hmm. I'm a capitalist. That means I have people and money work for me, and I pay no taxes legally. And I have a jet, I have my money stored overseas, and I'm about to get my second passport. That's when you ask me, how bad do you think it's going to get? Bad.
Yeah, when residents of the U.S. start to acquire additional passports, because the thing that most people understand is that you don't own that passport. I mean, the government can take it away from you at any time. And that could restrict your movement. And if you want the ability to maneuver, you're going to need another passport.
Can I tell you another? We meet these people on the way who deliver messages, like you and Rollo deliver messages. You either listen to them, you don't listen to them. But when I went to school in New York, I had a classmate, and he's a Jewish guy from Berlin. His family came from Berlin. I said, well, how'd you get here? He said, well, his mom and dad saw Hitler come to power. when they were in Berlin. And so they left and they moved to New York. And all their friends said, "Oh, you're such pessimist. You're such pessimist. Why? Hitler's not going to do anything. You're such a pessimist." And so I said, "So what was the lesson?" He says, "My parents understand now that the pessimist came to New York and got rich. The optimist went to Auschwitz." And so
True story.
yeah. And so what I'm doing is I'm saving gold, silver, Bitcoin. I like YouTube. I like listening to different points of view. But I want to be a capitalist, not somebody who needs a job so they can vaccinate me or fire me. I
Mm-hmm.
refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Nothing against the vaccine, but don't take my freedom away.
Yeah, I agree. Red Pill Arabic, with near demographical catastrophe in West economy fall follows, do you consider this your future investment?
What's that?
Let me read it again because I know he's from Jordan. With near demographical catastrophe in the West, so the West is collapsing, basically, is what he's saying. Economic fall. Do you consider this in your future investments? So, in future investments, do you consider what's going on in the U.S. with the Fed and with the economy and with political opinions and political correctness and the wokeness and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, you have to pay attention what's outside of you. But again, the reason I like your work is what's going on inside of you. See, you may not, I cannot control Biden,
Right.
but I can control me. And so that's why when I was listening to your stuff and Rollo's stuff about chasing excellence, don't chase women, because I was so blasted when Kim left because I stopped chasing excellence. I became a fat ass beta. I'm 74 years old, I'm going, holy shit, I'm going to, and because of you and Rollo, my health got better. Nicole did all those toxic cleanses on me, and that costs money.
Oh, yeah, self-care is expensive, especially as you get older. It's harder to repair the damage you've done.
Yeah, and that's why what you guys talk to a younger demographic, and that's why I started that program, Sex, Money, Power, with Rollo, because sex, money, and power, you got that, you got it made.
Yeah. Too bad they don't teach that in school, huh? Juan says, respects to Rob admitting his old beta tendencies. Most men of his stature position wouldn't admit it. Shout out to Rob for going on the show. And Christian says, thanks, Richard, for the lessons you've put out there. I, too, like Robert, became beta over time. I was able to find you before the demise of my marriage, which now works for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't like taking vitamins. They prefer painkillers, don't they? Right? I mean, like, we only go looking for vitamins after we've taken enough painkillers, right?
I guess so, but the reason what you say is important is because it's painful too. I'm in the, after this show is over, I'm over to a yoga class. I'm about as flexible as a leaf spring. I'm Japanese, but I couldn't take judo because my legs don't bend. And most Asians are real flexible.
Well, you're a single man now, right? I mean, I have a friend that's actually a little bit older than me. He's also divorced, and he calls his yoga studio his honeypot because there's so many women there.
Well, George Gavin was giving me grief for being in spin class. I said, I'm in the back row. I'm the yoga pants instructor.
You got the best view in the house. Hey, Robert, what advice would you give a 20-year-old man who is starting his entrepreneurial career?
Start. I mean, study. I mean, what accumulates? Fat accumulates, but so does knowledge and wisdom. And so I could be sitting at a bar, instead of listening to a Rich Cooper or Rollo, I could be sitting at a bar sucking down chicken wings and a Budweiser.
Mm-hmm.
That accumulates. Or I could be listening to YouTube and listening to you guys and listening to Gammon and listening to guys like Records. And I also listen to the Marxists. Some of these guys, they give me the creeps.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Marxists and communists on YouTube.
Well, you have to know your enemy, right? I mean, you have to know what they're plotting. Intel.
It's called keep an open mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of them are Marxists because they never learned to be a capitalist. If you're a capitalist, you would never be a Marxist.
Well, it's harder work to be a capitalist. I think it's harder work.
Yes.
I always say, just do the work. And like part of the reason why so many people, default to easier things is because it's easier, right? I mean, Marxism give me free shit, right? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about haters and criticism because it's one of the things that starts to happen as you become more popular and you're in the limelight. And I was talking to you before we went live, and I mentioned that I was looking at your Wikipedia page, and you said, "Oh, I never read those things," and they're usually filled with a decent amount of criticism. In fact, most of them have like a criticism area. So, how do you deal with critics? Like, do you have a go-to formula? Like, how do you deal with that?
Again, Rich, I want to thank you for that. You and Rollo. I am not bullshitting you because I don't need to do this. Is when you talk about chasing excellence and getting people into frame, you know, and one of the things I used to do is I'd shine off people. They
Hmm.
come up and talk to me about, well, thank you for the book. And now I don't do that. So when people stop me and say, thank you for writing your book, I stay with them. My excellence is to be a better human being with them. Everybody that comes up to me, because not that what's going to my head is I'm busy and I don't have time for somebody to tell me how they made 10,000 bucks. I just go, whoa, I sit there, listen to them, but it's in everything I do. Can I be excellent at it? Can I be a better human being towards them? And it's in what that's what I'm saying. It's the word excellence is a mental word. Well, how do I convert it to action? And when I convert it to action, I change. Maria Montessori, the Montessori school system, she says, what the hand does, the mind remembers. But too many academics, they have good memory, but they can't do shit.
Hmm.
That's my whole family, the great people, PhDs. I have one distant relative. He's 40 years old. He's living in the basement and he's going for his second PhD. He can't find a job. I said, duh. Is God trying to tell you something?
Yeah, so just
So
don't pay attention to that.
So what do you do?
You don't have any time to pay attention to haters if you're chasing excellence, right?
Well, there's a saying I have, don't teach pigs to sing. It wastes your time. It annoys the pig.
Yeah,
So I don't argue with them. These
yeah,
people, I'm not kidding. Rich, women call me up and say, I want to talk to Rich and Rollo. I said, help yourself. I
yeah.
want to tell them why they're wrong. I said, knock
Call in on
yourself
their
out.
show.
Yeah, yeah. I said, who gives a shit? But notice they don't have men. You know what I mean? I just look at what's happening. I said, where's your LTR? Where's your, well, I don't have one. What
Yeah.
happened? Well, he left me. Well, that should tell you something.
Savage Robert Kiyosaki is the best Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, let me catch up on some of these over here. I'm a man of chasing excellence thanks to these two men. With these two men on the screen together as priceless. Robert gave me the red pill of finance. Rich, you gave me the red pill of life. Lots to respect both. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Russian Eskimo. Thank you, Robert, so much. I'm getting ready to go into real estate at 18. I'm thinking of hard money. Is real estate okay during a crash? I think real estate's great during a crash, isn't it?
That's a very important question because all markets go up and all markets come down.
Yeah.
The reason stocks are better than real estate, okay, let's say I buy Amazon or Apple. Let's say it's $100. If it goes down, I can exit that fast. It's called liquidity. The trouble with real estate is not liquid. So if you buy at the height of a market, you're the skipper of the Titanic. You're going to go down with it because you can't get out. So that's the word is called liquidity. It's financial literacy. What does liquidity mean? Well, how fast can you exit? So with real estate, the reason I like real estate is I use 100% debt and I pay no taxes. So I've got to be 10 times smarter because I'm using 100% debt. And if that baby comes down, there's going to be a second crucifixion because this time it's going to be a Japanese guy, not a Jewish guy. They're going to hang me out to dry. My investors will. Do you know what I mean? So it really is the higher the risk. That's the thing I learned in flying. The more dangerous the flying, the better pilot you had to be. That's all it meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be better than the Viet Cong. I had tremendous respect for the Viet Cong and the NVA. Those guys could fight. And as you know, as a man, you respect another fighter. And they were fighters. Boy, they were good.
Yeah.
But I had to be better. That's all it meant to me.
Chris says my bank. Oh, okay. So this is just your quote. He says, my banker doesn't care about my GPA or cares about where my money is coming from.
Yep.
Let's see here. Earthling says, "Hey Robert, can you talk about Hex crypto and the economics behind the coin, staking, supply, demand, etc."
I'm afraid I know nothing about Hex crypto. All I know is crypto's taken on the Fed, and the Fed is Marxist. When you read my book, The Capitalist Manifesto, I have in there all the quotes by Lenin, especially about how to kill capitalism. Was number one, you debauch the currency, which Nixon did in '71, and second was the establishment of a central bank, which happened in 1913. And what I say to Americans is that America was formed as a tax-free nation. It wasn't 1619 or whatever they say, 1610. America was founded in 1773 at the Boston Tea Party. They said, we're not going to pay taxes. And I'm still a patriot because I still don't pay taxes because I use debt. And that takes a lot of study. And that's what I study, is how do the rich really get rich using debt and paying no taxes. You think Trump pays taxes? Of course not.
Yeah, most people that have their life sorted that make proper money aren't paying much in the way of taxes.
What was that?
Most people that have their life sorted that are making some serious bank in their lives, especially in the US. I mean, we don't have the same tax structure that you have in the US and Canada. Like I pay about 53% taxes on my income. Plus I'm paying 50% capital gains on anything that's outside of retirement savings. So it's like Canada's not the place to be if you want to pay minimum taxes. If you can leave, leave. I always tell guys leave Canada, but I'm stuck here until my kid's an adult. I'm just being honest.
Well, because, can I offer something?
Yeah, go ahead.
My accountant, his name is Tom Wheelwright. I'm going to have him on the program with you and Rollo.
Hey, I'd love to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And because he's an expert on taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy reads tax code. And so what we found, I've traveled all over with Tom and Kenny, my real estate guy. All we do is talk about debt and taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And in every country, it's real estate is the way out of taxes, debt.
Yeah.
And so I laugh at all the guys who were in Puerto Rico. I said, if you guys had any financial IQ, you don't have to go to Puerto Rico, because in Puerto Rico, you have to live 183 days to minimize your taxes. Whereas if you're a real estate guy, you don't have to pay taxes anyway.
Right.
But you've got to be able to borrow in the 100 million category.
Okay, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to do that collab in the future. So to the point of Hex crypto, let me just talk about this for a minute, because last time I checked, there's something like 11,900 different cryptocurrencies. Most of them have no use case whatsoever, and they're total either garbage or scams. Hex, in my view, is one of those. There's a lot of people that love it, and it's kind of tied into to me, it throws off the same vibes as BitConnect. And if you want to go back to 2016 or 17, around when BitConnect was getting big, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. My view on it is take your profits and get out. That thing's going to collapse eventually.
Okay. I've never heard about it, so I have no comment.
Yeah. The Competent Man, funny recent story. I was worried about large spikes in energy prices, but I realized I can't do anything. So I bought a oil future options contract, go oil. Yeah. I mean, you might as well make money while they're doing what they're doing, right?
That's a capitalist attitude. That's like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Green New Deal. Yeah. I said, well, I'll just sell carbon credits and make more money. God bless her.
Greetings from Berlin. I am Moroccan, Russian. Sorry, Russia doesn't want spot markets. That's like it's pushing for long-term contracts. Follow the next, I don't know what SC is.
Social contract? I don't know.
Maybe. What are your thoughts on decentralized finance? Okay, so let's talk about DeFi. So decentralized finance and apps, and would you consider them a good investment? What do you think about those, Robert?
I'm not qualified to speak on that, so I'd better not. I'm just saying I use 100% debt, because every time I borrow money, money is created. And so because I use debt, the government gives me tax breaks. If you can understand that, every time I borrow, like say $30 million, I borrowed $30 million for a piece of property in Austin, Texas. They give me tax breaks because I'm using debt. And that's why this financial statement is crucial. So when I sit down with the banker and I show him I got all these properties, I have no dings against them. They're cash flowing. They'll give me more money. So that's why, Rich, if he could get my accountant on and he can talk about global taxation, because it is your single largest expense. And I would hate to see you move to Puerto Rico.
I'll
Puerto Rico, but I like Canada better.
Do you want me to talk to Sarah to set that up?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So to the point of decentralized finance, and Robert, I would encourage you to look into this a little bit closer. Maybe
Okay.
talk to Charlie and Miguel. I know that you were on with them together with Rolo when they were doing the Cultivate Crypto thing. They know this space really, really well. Decentralized finance is going to be huge. It is going to disrupt the banks big time. It's basically decentralized finance, like as it purports. The banks can't control it, they can't shut it down, and they can't tax it.
Well, you know why I'm laughing is because I am centralized finance. I am the Fed.
You are your own Fed.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
but I have to
exactly.
be a borrower.
Yeah.
The Fed loves debtors. They
So,
hate they hate savers.
so what kind of rates are you able to get on your like real estate assets? For example, like what do they pay monthly?
My rates?
Yeah, like how much are you earning off the assets monthly, roughly?
Oh, I have no idea. I have 8,000 of them.
So with decentralized finance products, when you're staking them, they're anywhere from, I mean, on the low end, 15 to 20%. I've seen APYs as high as, I mean, temporarily in the thousands, but they generally average around 44% or so. It's worth looking into.
Yeah, let me say something, Rich. If I buy a property for 100% debt and I make $10, what's my ROI?
Sorry, say again.
Let's say I borrow, like I just borrow money. I have 100% debt.
Okay.
I'm as decentralized as they get because I'm centralized as they get.
Yeah.
But since it's none of my money, every dollar I make is infinite.
Right.
I'm making money out of nothing.
Right. So you're making money off the
Yeah.
central bank, basically.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am the central bank.
Yeah.
But it takes intelligence, and that's what the guy was talking about with the rat race and the fast track. That's all I teach. Is I don't need money. I use debt. And when I buy, so let's say I use debt here. This is the liability,
Hmm.
and I buy an apartment house, so I have no money in the deal, and cash is flowing to my income, and I'm paying no taxes. It's infinite.
What's the starting point for the average guy in the United States to get into a position where they're not going to like? Is it 30 million? Is it 50 million? Like,
No.
what sort of book do you need to get into that?
If you understand infinite, you don't need money. It's a complete different way of thinking, Rich. So that's what I learned from my rich dad. Because everybody says, "Oh, I can't afford it," and all this stuff. He says, "No, you just don't have enough brain power." So that's all I teach is how I. In fact, I'd love to come on a program with you and my two guys,
Hmm.
my debt guy and my tax guy,
Well, I
because
understand debt in
you'll
Canada
find
because I used to
religion.
run a business in the
Yeah,
debt space. We used to get people out of credit card debt.
no, because we do a lot of business in Canada.
Okay,
That's why
yeah,
I list in Toronto.
yeah. Let's do that. Let's
Okay,
definitely do
it's
that.
just a way of thinking. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Let me get through the rest of these here because I want to try to respect your time. I'm gonna wrap this up in about 15, if that's okay.
Sure.
The Moorish says, thus ending the hostility of Western Europe, which is mainly encouraged by LGBT and liberal movements inside the parliament. I think he's making reference to a comment that we were chatting about earlier.
Me?
Question for Robert. Hang on. Okay, guys, slow down with the super chats. Maybe stop because I got to get this done in like 15 minutes. Sorry. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. This is a great question. Rob, if you were writing Rich Dad, Poor Dad today, what point would you emphasize? Thanks for the insights, Rich and Robert.
I would emphasize today, watch YouTube.
Watch anybody specific?
No, guys like you, Rollo, George Gammon.
Gaiman's got a great channel. I've watched a lot of his stuff now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to. I drive people crazy. I take my kid out of school and I'm watch YouTube.
Yeah.
And they go, these teachers are teaching communism.
Yeah.
And you know that, I know that.
Yeah, they're indoctrinating children.
Yeah.
It's a indoctrination camp for children run by the state, basically.
Yes. Yes. And I fought against those guys. When I came back from Vietnam and I get spit on, hit by eggs by the hippies of the Woodstock generation, they all became school teachers.
That'll learn them. Robert, what books do you read recently and recommended reading?
Well, I'm reading constantly, but also I read spiritual books, like the Sad Guru. It's about how he says the same thing you say. You know that, Rich?
What does he say?
But it's about you got to take care of your inside.
Yeah.
You got to handle inside you, so you can control outside you.
Everybody wants to change the world today. Let's change the world. Let's make it
Change
more
yourself.
friendly and inclusive. And it's like, if your house is messed up, why are you trying to change the world, man? Fix yourself first.
Yeah, I mean that's why I begged Sarah to get me on your program, just to acknowledge what you and Rollo are doing, because it's information that is not readily available in the real world. And you've really got to know about sex, money, and power.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good on the money and the power side, but I had no idea what a fat beta male I had turned into.
See, that's the sad part about what guys like me and Rollo are doing, is that most people don't get to the point where they're willing to, pay attention, listen to what we have to say until they go through the trauma, right? Like their wife leaves them because you become a fat beta male, for example. That's not always a reason, but there's a number of different catalysts which are the input to, I'm suffering trauma. Where do I get the answer? And then one of your friends says, hey, read this book and watch this channel, sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So, Rich, I love my wife madly. I date other women, but I'm focusing on being more excellent. And guess what? My wife likes me better. Instead of being a victim.
Funny how it works that way, huh?
Yeah. It's if I just focus on becoming more excellent, focus on my mission, people like me better. And if I'm willing to invite them into my frame, as you guys say, and not be an asshole saying, well, I'm too busy. It's those little things of excellence.
Rich Dad said it himself, man. Be on your purpose, have a grind, chase excellence, not women. Women will want to be with you, men will want to be you. It's not complicated, No.
And there's plenty of women out there. But I tell you what you guys talk about, I see, but I didn't realize this, is testosterone levels are going down. And men are becoming, they're not even beta. What they're called is a person with a vagina.
I don't know if you know who Andrew Huberman is. I saw him on a Joe Rogan podcast a couple months ago, and I've been watching his podcast a lot lately. And I came across this one piece of information, which I think you're going to like. He said that scientifically speaking, like they've actually confirmed this, men's testosterone levels reduce when their woman cries.
When what?
When their woman cries, like when their wife or their girlfriend cries over something, men's testosterone levels drop.
Well, you know what you guys call it is don't get shit tested.
Yeah. Well, that's a shit test, is sitting around listening to the
I tell you what,
the tears.
Rich, that the scientific holy grail is called, when you get shit tested, fight back. I mean, I say, fuck you. And I now recognize a shit test when I see it. I didn't know it before.
Yeah, there was a gig that we did with Aaron Cleary, Rollo, and Gammon, I think, and you weren't available for it. But I think Aaron was talking about how he doesn't deal with a woman's tears, like he just walks away. So there's a lesson there from Huberman's scientific research. If she's starting to cry, you can walk away and your testosterone levels maintain themselves. It's one option anyway.
Yeah, just don't get manipulated by it.
Yeah, don't be manipulated by the tears.
Control you. There's nothing wrong with being kind and compassionate and stuff like this.
Right.
You don't have to be an asshole. That's not what alpha stands for. It's not asshole, but just be an alpha male.
Put yourself first. Let's grab this one over here. I believe that entrepreneurial spirit and maintenance of society are not exclusive. Can we admit that bankers do suck capacity from the economy, stifle the ability to create startups more than it should? What do you think about that?
I completely disagree. If you have a good financial, bankers give all the money. I had to learn how to raise capital. It's a science. So that's why I was in Vancouver. When I told people I was listing on the Vancouver Stock Exchange, they all ran from me. I said, you must be nuts. I said, but that's where those guys are. They're practicing. I learned more about raising capital in Vancouver. I call it the Frito Bandito capital of the world. But once we got listed, we had to migrate to Toronto, TSE.
Hmm.
And that's how you're going to migrate to NASDAQ. Well, we didn't have a chance because the Chinese stole our property.
That was a gold mine story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you learn, But I make the money back because exactly as I said, you fall down and stand back up.
Yeah. A winner is somebody that got, you fall down 6 times, you get back up seventh. That's what
Yeah.
a winner does, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when they win. Thank you for answering my prior question with such depth. Would also like to ask what you see as the most possible timeline for the US through 2030. Will centralization or decentralization win? How does the average Joe survive? So lean into the future 10 years, Robert. How does the average Joe survive what's happening in the US?
Well, I think one of the best books written was that guy, the Fourth Dimension or something, or um, the Fourth Turning. It talks about we're now hit the fourth turning. A turning is a lifetime, approximately 85 years.
Is that the book title, The Fourth Turning?
I think so, yeah. But it talks about we're entering a period of weak leadership. And when you see Biden, he's as weak as they get.
Yeah.
So these guys have studied it. I think it's called the fourth turning. I read it a while ago. But we're now exactly in the fourth turning. And there's a period of we have lack of leadership. So 2030 will be even worse. But that's good news if your attitude is more of an alpha. You're going to be proactive. You're going to do something. You're going to work harder on yourself and try and change outside. Change you. Be in the stacks. Find a purpose. Chase excellence. That's how you get out of this thing. I mean, from your stuff and Rollo's stuff and all this, it's really changed what I do. I wrote Capitalist Manifesto, due in part a lot to inspiration by you and Rollo, and plus my wife leaving. I said, why'd she leave?
Mm-hmm.
So the kick, it's like a shotgun shot in the chest. I said, okay, you better get more excellent and write harder. And since I see communism already taking place, I mean, it's all over Canada, as you know.
Yeah.
And I better do something about it. So I start Capitalist Manifesto with, I have more to lose and to gain by writing this book, but I got to do it.
Got it.
And that's mission, that's excellence. But I had to become a better writer because the danger is higher.
I got like 8 minutes left, guys, so don't send any more questions. I may not get through all these. Question for Robert: thoughts on China releasing their own cryptocurrency in the coming months, backed by gold? Will we see this in the U.S. or even a global cryptocurrency? Well, the global cryptocurrency is Bitcoin right now, but what do you think about this Chinese one that's coming out?
Well, I just don't trust the Chinese, not the people, but the Chinese government.
The government, yeah.
Yeah. There's a funny story about it, and this kind of fits where we come from, is when Mao Zedong was in power, he was one of the worst financial leaders. He murdered 25 million or 60 million people. And that's what I'm afraid of. Communists murder people. Stalin murdered people. Lenin murdered people. Hitler murdered people. So when Mao came to power, they had a rat problem, and there were rats all over China because nobody was taking care of it. So he said, okay, I'll pay you guys to take care of, to catch rats. And the Chinese aren't stupid. They said, why should we catch them? We just raised them.
There's a decent documentary on Netflix. I think it's called How China Became Rich. It's either on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I can't remember where I saw it, but it's called How China Became Rich. Go watch it.
Yeah, okay.
Check that out.
The point here is that we're interconnected in this world. It's a global currency. We're in a shadow banking system has more power than the Fed or any central bank. And so the reason I support Bitcoin or crypto, the process of it, is because the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street have no power anymore. And you better go to the power as quickly as you can. And the power sits up here, and don't be a victim. You look at what Black Lives Matter says. I'm not against blacks. They say that the definition of what do they call it? A suppressed person is mentally and intelligently more superior than the rich. They're telling the people that poor people are better than the rich people. And I don't doubt that's true in some places, but I don't really care. That's why I'm on your program. You just chase excellence in your own life. And you've been able to handle no matter what comes down the pike. Like I said, when my wife left me, it was a wake-up call. But she stepped up too. I wasn't stepping up. So I've stepped up now, and we actually get along better. Or I could blame her for everything.
Right.
You know?
This is a really good question here. So isn't real estate mostly ruined by the fact the government can stop rent for months on end? Like, why would the typical person want that risk?
They've never stopped my rent. I don't know what country you live in.
I think he's talking about the rent relief during the pandemic, during the lockdowns and all that, where people weren't required to pay their rent.
Yeah, well, you just handle those little problems you handle. I mean, I don't handle any of that. That's why my friend Kenny comes on.
Mm-hmm.
I just give him my money. I make a lot of money in my other businesses, but I've got to give my money to a real estate guy.
How did you solve that problem? Like, I'm not in the U.S., so I don't know how the rent,
Yeah,
situation worked, with a lockdown.
yeah. So that's why it would be good, Rich, if we get Kenny and Tom on. We can talk about that. We talk about Kenny. I can talk about the world because we've
Okay,
traveled
cool.
the world together,
Cool.
and they all find out it's always the same. When you look here, this is ESB. This is the book number 2. You go to school to be an employee, or you become a doctor, or a lawyer, a specialist, or a plumber, something like this. The capitalists live on this side here, B and I. And so when we taught all over the world, we only teach this side here. I don't know this side. That's my poor dad side.
Mm-hmm.
This is my rich dad side here. So B stands for a brand, 500 employees and a brand. So my book is now number 20 in the world because I studied how to build a brand. I didn't study how to be a doctor. And then the I stands for insider. I never touch outside stocks. I'm always an entrepreneur. But so that's why my solutions are different, but I studied for it. That's the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's embroidered in the headrest on your chair too, isn't it?
What's that?
That's embroidered in the headrest of your chair behind you. Yeah, I just noticed that.
My whole team gave that to me because Rich Dad teaches people to be on this side. Academics teach people on this side. These guys pay 40% in taxes. S's pay 60%. So if a doctor makes $1 million, they walk home with 400. Mm-hmm. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I make $1 million here. I walk away with $1 million. And I walk over here, it's 20%. And the reason I get a tax break here is because I have so many employees. And the average person has no employees. So I have about 1,000 employees. I create jobs. So I get tax breaks. And so that's why these guys here, they're small business guys, get hammered because my tax guy will explain it to you. I just know I don't want to be here.
Yeah, we'll schedule that in so that yeah, cool. Yeah, let's dive into that.
This is book number 2. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this makes more sense. And the third book is Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. Here, I use debt and I don't pay taxes. You know how fast you can get ahead doing that?
Mm-hmm. Here, I'm just going to look real quick if there's any other questions. Most of these are statements. You guys can read the super chats. Looks like that's it. Let's start to wrap up because we did a full 90 minutes. This was a long one. I normally don't go quite this long, but this was a awesome conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk to Sarah about scheduling you again with the tax guy. Where do you want to send people to find your stuff? Is it your books? Do you have a website? Do you have a program?
Well, it's richdad.com.
Okay.
I flunked out of high school because I can't write.
But you wrote books.
And now my book is number 20 in the world of Amazon.
Which one is it? Is it the Rich Dad book or is it the Cash Flow Quadrant book?
25 years. Rich Dad book.
It is awesome.
But I started it because this here is what your banker asks you for. It's a financial statement. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad is simply a book on accounting, income statements, balance sheet, statements of cash flow. If you can control that, which is what you guys are talking about, you and Rollo, you control yourself, you control your financials, you can control your life.
There you have it, guys. Robert Kiyosaki is the godfather of the red pill on finance. So check out his material. like I said, he's a great guy, and really enjoyed the conversation, Robert. I'm going to reach out to Sarah and take you up on the offer with your tax
Yeah,
guy for other
we're on the
guests.
same team. It's sex, money, power.
Sex,
That's
money,
what we
power,
want.
man. Let's do
That's
it.
what we want.
Thanks, brother. Stay
Thank
on
you.
for a sec just as I end this.
Thank
But
you.
guys, thank you. Make sure you hit the like button and leave a comment below.